Welcome to Breaking Barriers, where we're exploring African American history and today's social justice issues. Change starts with awareness, so listen and learn. I'm your host, Stephanie, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Breaking Barriers. I'm Stephanie, your host. If this is your first time here, welcome. So excited for you to be here. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. We're super excited to talk today. So I'm going to reiterate the podcast a little bit just so anybody new knows what's going on, what we're talking about. So Breaking Barriers is a podcast about African American history and kind of talking about social justice issues nowadays. So how our history is impacting any issues that we are seeing today. So if you haven't seen the first episode, please go back and watch it. Our first episode was about slave patrol and police brutality, just kind of showing how slave patrol affected current police brutality nowadays and how our history is kind of continuing to repeat itself and what we can do to make some change as far as social contemporary justice issues. Today, we're going to talk about mental health. I think that mental health is something that's really important, and I think it's highlighted a lot today in social media. But I want to highlight it kind of more specifically in the Black community. So we're going to start with the history of it, and then we're going to talk about kind of contemporary issues nowadays and kind of what we can do to help people, dealing with mental health issues and kind of just what can be done and how you can help as a family member or a friend or a parent or whoever you are to somebody who is going through mental health. So let's start with the history of mental health in the African American community. So there are a lot of areas that we could talk about, but I'm going to kind of hit like three main big areas as far as things that can contribute to mental health in the Black community. So we all know slavery. That's one of the biggest ones. The enslavement of our people for years and years and years has left generational trauma through so many families and so many different areas, specifically kind of PTSD as far as going through slavery and the severe physical punishment and the deterioration of people's mental and physical health through abuse and murder and just kind of seeing those things impact themselves, their friends, their family members, whoever it is. That is something that has left generational trauma even to this day. Even if you don't know your great-great-grandparents that were enslaved, it has still left an impacting effect on you and your parents and your grandparents. And you see that over the years, especially as you get older and you start to become more aware of the things around you. We could also talk about Jim Crow and these laws that were just continuously pushing for segregation and enforcing it constantly, where it was separate everything, separate but equal, Black bathrooms and Black water fountains, and Black people couldn't use the white bathrooms or whatever it was, the white areas, the white sections or white-only restaurants or white-only clubs, whatever it was. That segregation also leaves trauma through generations, constant, violence and pain that people were going through every day. That leaves a lasting effect, and it causes high stress level and anxiety, depression, and just feeling so segregated, just even in your own mind. You're constantly seeing I can't go here, I can't do this, I can't do that because of my skin color. That leaves a mental impact on you. You start to think that way about yourself, that you're not good enough, you're not able to do this because someone said so. That leaves a lasting effect. And you could talk about the civil rights era, where we're seeing people who are fighting back constantly for our rights, and they're being arrested and they're being assaulted and they're being, threatened. Their lives are threatened. They are just trying to make a path for the generations to come, and their lives are being threatened. That is traumatizing. That causes very high stress levels, anxiety, depression, fear for their own lives, that someone's going to hurt them or hurt their family or their friends or anybody that is close to them. That is very traumatizing. So, we saw the history of it and how that kind of develops over time and how that continues to affect generations. So now I kind of want to talk about more recent stuff, things that we're seeing nowadays, and kind of how mental health is affecting the Black community. So mental health is a significant issue in the African American population. Around a little over 20% of African American adults are experiencing mental health, and that was just in 2021. So even now that's 3 years ago. So the number could be even higher at this point. And about 25% of African Americans are actually seeking help compared to 40% of white people. And it's not that white people are dealing with more mental health. It's actually shown that African Americans are more likely to deal with mental health. White people are just more comfortable and they feel more safe, seeking help for their mental health issues because they haven't, been through the generational trauma that African Americans have. Like I spoke about earlier when we were dealing with times of slavery, PTSD was very, very common, especially generationally. People are dealing with PTSD and then they're passing it on to their children and then their children are passing it on to their children. It's just continuing the cycle. About 8.7% of African Americans experience PTSD due to trauma in their childhood, trauma, continuing through their teenage years and their adulthood and not healing that trauma. So addressing trauma that you see in childhood is very, very important. If you're interested in figuring out if you have dealt with any, childhood trauma or how to address it, one thing I do suggest would be the ACEs test. It's Adverse Childhood Experiences Test. It kind of asks you 10 different questions addressing different areas like substance abuse and domestic violence and just violence in general or any educational stuff. Like it shows you all of those things. It asks you all the questions. You just answer the question, and the higher your score is, the more likely you are to have adverse experiences like, kind of those side effects of those adverse experiences. So mental health issues, chronic health issues, risky behavior, social and behavioral problems. These are things that childhood trauma could lead to. And you may not even realize it's because that childhood trauma. You may not even remember it. You may be blocking that part of your life out and not even realizing it. And it could be manifesting itself in your adulthood. So if you're interested, I would suggest taking that test. It's called the ACEs test. You can just look it up on the internet and it'll show you. And you just count up your score. And the higher your score is, the more likely you are to have those side effects. So now I want to start talking about why, African Americans are not seeking help for mental health concerns, because we know that mental health concerns are very common. It's not anything to be like, oh my God, we got to hide away. It's very common. But there are a lot of reasons as to why people in the Black community don't reach out for help. So let's talk about that. So the biggest thing and the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the stigma. As African Americans, we have experienced so much history in the medical system that has made us distrustful. We don't trust medical systems nowadays because of our history and even continuing to see it nowadays. So I'm going to give you a really big example that if you don't know about it, it's going to be pretty shocking, but it'll really help you understand why Black people have a hard time trusting any type of doctor, whether it's a pediatrician or a therapist or just any type of doctor. It's very difficult because of this situation right here. We're going to talk about it. So what I want to talk about is the Tuskegee Syphilis Study. If you don't know what this is, buckle up because this is really going to shock you. So the Tuskegee Study was done by the U.S. Public Health Services between 1932 and 1972. It went on for 40 years. Initially, the study was only supposed to last 6 months, or at least that's what they had said that they were planning to do. So the point of the study was to observe the natural progression of untreated syphilis. in African American men over a period of time, but these men were not told that that's what was going on. Many of them did not even know that they had syphilis. They had about 600 men involved in this study, and about 399 of them actually had syphilis, and the rest of them were just kind of a control group. So they were told that, they were being treated for bad blood. So they were told that they were being given free health care and that they were going to be taken care of, which is not what happened. They were under false pretenses. They did not give their consent to what the study actually did. And it just kind of gets worse and worse and worse because it's going on for 40 years. People are dying. People are getting even more sick. People are going blind. And it's just lasting effects on the people involved, their family members. Some of their family members even got sick themselves because they didn't know that these people weren't being treated. They thought they were being treated, so they were getting better, but they were actually getting worse. So these men were being promised to get free medical care, free meals, and burial insurance. But they were not informed that they had syphilis, and they didn't know, that they weren't being treated for it. They thought that they were being treated for something else and that they were going to get better, which is not what happened. So the study began in 1932, and it goes all the way to 1972. In 1947 was when they realized that penicillin was a cure for syphilis. Although they had a cure, they still chose not to give the cure to these 600 men that they were studying. So as I said, because they weren't being treated and this disease was just kind of running its course, it led to a lot of these men going blind, dealing with mental illness, and even dying because of it. They were also giving this, illness to their family members and people around them not knowing. It was in 1972 when this entire study was exposed to the press and became a public outrage, and it led to a congressional hearing. In 1974, 2 years after they had finished the study, or 2 years after the study was exposed, they had a class action lawsuit filed by the participants that were still alive and their family members, resulting in a lifetime medical care benefits and burial services. Eventually, over time, the National Research Protection Act was passed, which was forcing, regulations and legal action and allowing people to have ethical work being done, that they could, be like, okay, this is being done ethically. This is being done for the purpose of taking care of this person who needs help, helping the person out. In 1997, when Bill Clinton was the president, he formally put out an apology on behalf of the U.S. government to the participants, the family members, anybody that was a surviving participant, and acknowledging where they had failed ethically and showing that the study was built specifically on a racist foundation. Although a formal apology was put out, it does not change what had happened. It doesn't make it better. It still has led to such a large impact on the Black community of mistrust in the medical field, because it's very hard to believe that someone wants the best for you when we've seen history over time show us time and time again that they don't want the best for us and that they're looking to prey on our downfall. So that has led to one of the biggest factors of mistrust in the medical field as far as the Black community. So another reason why a lot of people in the Black community don't seek help when they're dealing with mental health concerns is because of the cultural perception of Black people. We are constantly seen as the strongest and the most resilient. And just because we've gone through so much does not mean that we have to be strong all the time. That's not fair, nor is it realistic. We have gone through a lot, and we've pushed and pushed and pushed, and we are very resilient and we are very strong. But That does not mean that you can't ask for help. You should be able to ask for help and get the help that you need because you deserve it. You've been strong long enough. You've been resilient enough. This is something that you cannot manage on your own. Whether you go to a family member, a friend, a professional, whoever it is, seek help if you feel like something is off, but you're not feeling like yourself, something is wrong. Or if it's a friend or a family member that notices something is wrong, maybe figure out, what's going on. Reach out to a professional. There are many different options nowadays, even if you're just talking to a friend or a family member. Another big reason as to why people aren't reaching out for help is because the lack of representation in the mental health profession. I know for myself, when I went to therapy, I did my research and I found a Black professional. I was very adamant about that. I wanted to feel like I was being represented and I could feel comfortable with this person and feel safe that they were going to acknowledge my concerns from a perspective that they can understand. Yes, you can go to a therapist or a counselor or seek medical help from someone of a different race, but those layers of intersectionality where, you're dealing with being a person of color while being a woman or being a parent, those things overlap, and it makes it a lot easier to have a professional that can relate to you on some level, that can understand where you're coming from. It's very hard to explain the struggles of a Black person to a white person because they don't understand it. They have not gone through the same exact struggles that you have. But a Black person to a Black person can understand, you know what, I know, why you feel that way. I've been there. I felt the same way because of my skin color. I felt the same way because I am who I am. So the lack of representation makes it very, very difficult. So if you are seeking medical help as far as mental health, do your research. Try to find people in your area. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. You can find therapy online and you can search through a list of therapists. You can, see what they specialize in. You can see who they are, their pronouns and their race and everything, all of that. You can see all of those things and you can pick and choose who you think is best fit for you. Another reason why people aren't seeking help, I think this kind of ties into that stigma and the cultural piece of it, is shame. People feel like if they are seeking help and they tell somebody that they're seeking help, then they're smaller because of that, or people are going to make fun of them or call them crazy or whatever they may have experienced by their friends or their own family members. That fear of being labeled as something or ostracized by the people around you. Don't ever feel that way because you are important, you matter, your mental health matters. Just like you would take care of a broken bone or, a heart disease or something like that, take care of your mind just as much as you take care of your physical body. Just because people can't see that you're physically hurting, they can't see, they can see a broken bone, but they can't see what's going on in your head, doesn't mean that there's not something wrong. Put yourself first. Go get the help that you need. Whatever you think is best for you, that's what you should do as far as getting help. Don't let other people shame you or make you feel bad because it's not your fault. You have gone through a lot of stuff, and it's a lot for our bodies to handle that type of stuff with stress and anxiety. It becomes very overwhelming. So get the help that you need. Don't let anybody make you feel bad about it. Another factor is the economic barrier. Therapy can be expensive. It is not cheap. Nothing is cheap nowadays, but therapy is not cheap. So a lot of people will use a lot of people, when they're going to therapy, they use insurance. And not everyone has insurance. So it can be kind of hard to get past that barrier. My suggestion would be to go online, just look up therapists near me or online therapy or telehealth, and look through all these different websites because some people will take cash, they take self-pay, through card or your bank account, and you can find discounted prices. As far as these things. Or you can also, if you have insurance, you can go through your insurance as well. But if you can't afford to get a therapist right now or you don't have insurance to get a therapist right now, that's okay. I suggest even just reaching out to friends or a family member, someone that you trust, that you know genuinely cares about your well-being, and just talk to them. Even if you don't need a response from them, even if you don't need them to solve your problems, maybe you just need someone to vent to. You just need someone to bounce ideas off of, or just someone to relate to you. Find somebody that can help you. There are people out there. The people in your life that care about you the most will get you where you need to be. They will help you. Lastly, I think another really big factor as far as the Black community would be religious beliefs. A lot of people in the Black community are very religious, and that's great. I myself am as well, so I get it. But that is not going to fix all your problems. I think that if you believe in God and praying is important to you and going to church is important to you, I think you should keep that in your life. Continue doing that because that is a part of you. That's who you are. That's important to you. I'm the same way. But having help otherwise from someone who is a professional or just someone around you that you can really speak this out is important to have those. You could have both. It's a good balance to have both of them because when, one isn't getting you where you need to be, then you can go to the other one and you can kind of balance the two of those and figure out what works best for you. So I think the best way to address mental health in the Black community is to normalize it. It's normal. We need to break the stigma off and break off the shame that comes with mental health concerns because the mental health concerns are more important than what someone thinks of you or what random people you don't even know think of you. You are your main priority. You cannot do anything for anyone else. You can't, provide for your children or be a good friend or be a good family member to anyone if you are not your top priority. You come first because at the end of the day, you have you. For you to be the best parent or for you to be the best friend or be the best partner or the best daughter, son, whoever you are to other people in their lives, you need to be the best version of yourself. So you need to normalize whatever's going on in your life and get the help that you need. So in order to normalize mental health in the Black community, I think we should talk about it more. So I want to talk about a couple people that you know off the top of your head is a household name, someone that you be like, okay, yeah, I know that person. I really like that person because they do this, this, or this. And talk about their mental health concerns. Let's talk about MLK because we're talking about African American history. MLK dealt with extreme, severe depression. MLK attempted suicide twice. The first time when he was 13 at his grandmother's funeral. He tried jumping out of a two-story building or two-story home, and he attempted suicide. He attempted suicide again after that. He struggled with severe depression, starting from, childhood and beyond, because even in his childhood, he was dealing with so much chaos and fear in his life and just so much racism that was ingrained in him. And even as he got older and he became the person that we all know now as a civil rights leader making change in our world, he still dealt with that severe depression because he was under high stress all the time. Him and his family members, his close friends, were all being threatened. Their lives were constantly being threatened. They were being harassed and arrested and even like people attempting to kill him, even before he was killed. People attempting to kill him, attacking his home, his family, and just that high stress level will get to you, especially after years and years and years to it. Like he was already dealing with that severe depression, but on top of that, people threatening his life, threatening his family, the people he was close to, and doing anything they could to tear him down. That is going to impact you. But he did not let that get to him. He did his best to really push for the change that we needed to be made. Even, as he was dealing with these things, he was very adamant about continuing to push for change because he knew that these people were threatening him and causing all of this stress and trauma in his life because they didn't want the change that he wanted to be made. They didn't want that. So seeing him be able to do all of that, and he had his ways of getting through the things that he was dealing with his depression. He focused heavily on his religious beliefs, which like I said earlier, your religion is, if it's important to you, then it's important to keep that factor in your life, and it's going to be helpful for you. But also, with the resources that we have nowadays, you can have both. You can have your religious beliefs and using your prayer and reading the Word of God to help you, but also seeking help from a professional. We could also talk about Michelle Obama, who we all know and love, our former First Lady. We love her. She also has experienced, low-grade depression, especially during the COVID pandemic. She kind of emphasizes the importance of seeking mental health resources from anywhere you can and just getting away from that stigma and just breaking down each and every little piece of the stigma that we can to get to a point where we are comfortable talking about, what we're going through, and we're comfortable to help other people get through that as well. The Rock, we all know him as an actor and professional wrestler, and we see him in all of these goofy, fun movies, but he also deals with depression. And he talks about this as well. You can kind of see it over the years where he talks about his depression and being, someone to push for change and help people realize that you're not alone. Another one I talk about that is pretty relevant would be Kanye West. I think it got to a point where we were constantly seeing Kanye everywhere, and it was for something different, and we were all just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And everyone wanted to label him as crazy or he was insane or whatever they labeled him as. But he had been open about, dealing with his bipolar disorder. And throughout this whole thing, anytime people had brought it up to me, I always was like, you know what? I think he just needs some help. He's clearly going through a mental health crisis and no one's doing anything about it. People are just making judgment and not being there to help him. And clearly the help is what he needs. So we can use that example to just know that, unfortunately, there is a stigma, but there are places to get help. Things do get better. You do matter. You are important. You're not alone. And seeing these, mental health concerns in people that you may idolize or people that you really like or that you, watch and see and you admire this person, they are dealing with it as well. You're not alone. It's not something that is only affecting certain people. It affects everybody. Everyone goes through something traumatizing in their life, and you should find a way to be able to deal with that and know, okay, you know what? I really could use some help with this. This is really affecting me in ways that I was not expecting. So just knowing that there are other people out there. Another one is Gabrielle Union. She is a big advocate for mental health awareness. She talks about her PTSD after being sexually assaulted. And she does a lot as far as, pushing for change and emphasizing the importance of self-care and therapy. I think if you are not ready to go to therapy, if you're not in a position where you're like, okay, you know what, I can afford this right now or I have insurance to cover this, I think that self-care is super, super, super important. Something that you can do on your own time, at your own pace, with your own money. It doesn't have to be expensive. Whatever you feel that makes you most comfortable, makes you feel safe, makes you feel happy, whatever it is, do that, prioritize that. Whether you do it once a week or you do it every day, put that in your schedule. Make that something that you value, because those little steps can get you a long way. Just realizing, okay, incorporating, a skincare routine or, a spa day for yourself or just cooking for yourself, whatever you love doing, incorporate that into your schedule, and whether it's weekly, monthly, daily, incorporate that, because that really can make a change in your mental health. Before we close out this episode, I really want to talk about suicide. We know that this is, can be a side effect of mental health concerns, especially depression. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in America, especially in 2022. The rate is insane. In 2022, nearly 50,000 Americans died by suicide. Suicide is a very significant public health issue, and it's something that we need to take very seriously because it's vital. It's very, very important. I recently had a friend of mine die by suicide, and I don't want to ever have to feel that feeling that I felt ever again. It's gut-wrenching, and it tears you apart to know that someone that you know and loved was just struggling so much that that was their only way out. I want you to know, whoever's watching this, whether you're watching this for yourself or for someone that you love, please just let them know that they are important. You are important. You matter. People care about you. You leaving this world does affect people. You are so, 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 so important. And I just want you to know that. And if you don't know how to say that to somebody that you care about, send them this video. Let them know. I'll tell them that they're important. I may not even know them, but I will tell them that they're important because they are important. And please check in on your people. Do what you got to do, whether it's a quick little text or a phone call or you go see them in person. Just check in on them. Make sure they're good. And if you notice, a shift in somebody's behavior, if you're even concerned about somebody, look up the signs of mental health or, suicide. Look them up and say, am I noticing that in this person? Am I seeing that? There are signs. And sometimes you may not notice them and you may not notice them for a little while. But if you start to feel like, somebody is off or they're not feeling how they usually feel, they're acting different, just check in on them. Make sure they're okay. You never know what's going on. Like, I've come to the realization that we truly are the main character in our own lives. Like, we deal with what we deal with, and we have side characters in our life, family members, friends, significant others, whoever it is. Those are people who have their own lives. You may know a lot about them, but you don't know every single thing that's on their mind all the time. You are the only person that knows every single thing that's going on in your life at all times. You know your emotions, you know your feelings, you know everything about yourself. So keep that in mind when you're checking in on people or even when you're dealing with your own mental health stuff. Not everyone is just going to immediately pick that up. Speak to them, reach out to your people and make sure that they are good. It is so, 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 so important. I don't want to see anyone, lose their life because they're dealing with mental health concerns. So let's talk about it. And before I close out, I want to talk about different avenues as far as how you can address any mental health concerns that you may be having, or a family member, a friend, a child, a student, whoever it is, someone in your life. The first one I want to talk about is BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform where you can go online, you plug in a bunch of information about yourself, why you want to go to therapy, your age, your race, your gender, all of that. And they go through all of their therapists, and within a couple of days, they give you a therapist that they see fit for you. And therapy can be a little complicated. You may not love your therapist, so all you have to do is let BetterHelp know, and they'll match you with a different therapist. Not every therapist is fit for you, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't feel like you don't mesh with your therapist. Just find a new one. It's really simple. It's kind of like dating. They're not fit for you. You're not fit for them. On to the next. Really simple. Grow Therapy is another platform very similar where you can find a therapist online. I think that both of those, and there's plenty of others as well. Those are just ones I know off the top of my head. Those are very helpful platforms. And even if you're looking for maybe an in-person therapist, just look up therapist near me. And plenty of things will come up for you to find. As far as the, talking about suicide, if you are dealing with suicidal ideation, or if you know someone who is dealing with suicidal ideations, I really highly recommend either calling or texting 988. That's the suicide hotline. It's available 24 hours, anytime you need it. Even if you're just, maybe you're not going to attempt suicide, or you're just, you're feeling really down, or you are nervous or scared about your life, call them, text them. Someone will be there to speak to you. And it might even be easier to talk to them because they don't know you. Sometimes it's hard to talk to family members or friends because, they have a preconceived idea, or they know you, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to speak to them. Now, at this point, you're speaking to a stranger. You can tell them anything and everything, whatever you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and just put it all out there. Because sometimes you just need someone to talk to make you feel better, just to make you feel heard and validated and understood, because sometimes it's hard to feel that way. So having that person there to either call or text is really essential. So please, 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 please give them a call, a text, whatever it is you have to do to get yourself out of that scary place, because it is a scary place, and I don't want anyone to be there. Lastly, the most simple one, reach out to a friend or a family member. You may not think that they're equipped to talk about it, but maybe you just need someone to listen. Maybe they have advice that you didn't know that they had. Maybe they have dealt with this themselves and they sought help, or they were able to speak to someone. You never know. So just do what you can to reach out. Seek help for any mental health concerns that you're dealing with, because like I said 1,000 times already, you are important, you matter, and I care about you, your family cares about you, friends care about you, whoever it is, a lot of people care about you. You matter. So please, please, please seek help. If you like today's topic, or you think that someone you know needs to hear it, please send it to them. And please share this on all your social media platforms. Get the word out. We need to talk about mental health and address it for what it is, because it's here and it's not going anywhere. So let's talk about it. Please like and subscribe. All the information can be found below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.